What is your assessment at present of the ratcheting up of this conflict here in the Holy Land and its potential consequences region-wide?
The end of the Palestinian-Israeli talks, of course, means a vacuum politically. In the region, as you've been describing earlier, Becky, there is a generic problem, and that is conflicts everywhere in the region, strife raging in the region. Over and above that, you have the United States and Russia still not getting their act together, so to speak, in terms of the Ukraine, and Leslie Gelb of the Council of Foreign Relations talking about the importance of a Damascus-Baghdad-Tehran axis in which Russia will play a prominent profile. All of this says to me that we're getting back to the formula of the need for lasting peace, which we've called for over 100 years, if you will, 1914 to 2014. So I just wonder that against the background of the guns, whether or not we can't sit around a table and begin to build a concept of what needs to be addressed in terms of final status. I know that is impossible to talk about with over 80 Palestinians killed in Gaza today and what's happening in Iraq and Syria and elsewhere, but that's basically what you're asking me.
The ongoing Israeli-Palestinian crisis, as you rightly pointed out, clearly provides Islamic militants an excuse, as far as they are concerned, for their ongoing insurgency, not least the likes of ISIS in Iraq and Syria. And elements of that group, of course, I know are a real concern to Jordan as well. How big a threat are they, and what chance of them extending their influence across an even greater swathe of the Middle East unless they are stopped in their tracks at this point?
Well, Daniel Kurtzo is sharing this program with me. We'll be speaking about Islamic militancy, I assume, in Egypt, and also of Egypt's contribution, as well as Jordan's, to potential revival of peace talks. But I think as far as militancy in the region as a whole, when you talk about a country with over 14% of the population under the poverty line, when you talk of a country, I'm speaking of Jordan today, which has received the equivalent of 40 million people arriving in Germany. I mean, we are literally sharing our existential rights with Syrians, with Iraqis, with Palestinians, and are really looking for a resilience concept for the region. Resilience means an existential concept for the region, whereby people are enabled.
Yeah. In an article that you wrote recently about Western involvement in all of this, you said, and I quote, the kind of short-sighted series of ill-advised interventions that we have become accustomed to since the Second World War, where every decade has seen one or more Middle Eastern countries embroiled in protracted conflicts, you say is unwelcome. How, then, if at all, can the West play a constructive role in all of this?
The only way is to pull the rug from under the carpet of the extremists who are basically asking for equality, asking for social justice. I mean, let's look at the Sustainable Development Goals of this year. Yes, next year is 70 years of the United Nations. We're all talking about freedom from hunger, and I would focus in particular on a non-threatening confidence-building measure, and that is a regional concept of water management. We're talking in this region of 45 million people about to be uprooted in Egypt by 2030 by the Mediterranean flooding the Nile Delta, and another 45 million people in Iran. So I think that the wealth of the region is distant from the human resources of the region. That is to say, the Gulf is cocooned from and isolated by armies and navies from the realities of what is happening and the misery that's happening in our part of the world. The West has to reassess on the basis of region rather than of bilateral interventions.